don't mind.
Welcome to the Joshua Morales podcast.
Recording. Okay. So, all right. So we are here at UTRGV in the beautiful conference room of the College of Sciences, right? Mm-hmm. Just for a little bit of context, explain what it is that you do and how did you get into it?
Of course. Well, I'm the director of digital marketing and marketing analytics at UTRGV, the University of Texas Rio Grande Valley. What is it that I do? Well, my team oversees everything from the website content to the social media, the videos, anything dealing with digital advertising, all of the digital ads on YouTube, all of the Facebook ads, Google ads, anything dealing with reaching out to the student population and the community at large digitally.
Okay. How did you get into that? Because it's a very different career than traditional. When did you find out that digital media, digital advertising was an actual real thing?
This was in Houston. Back when I was living in Houston, I graduated with a bachelor's in psychology. Back then we had a bachelor's in persuasive psychology. So it was a very interesting program. But honestly, there is no job for that position right away. So what I did is when I was living in Houston, I took a certificate in web design from the University of Houston, and I started building websites. As I started building websites, I started my own mini company, and people started asking, "Hey, can you help me with the social media? Hey, this Google ads. Hey." So I started little by little, just getting in there, and eventually I just fell in love with digital advertising and the potential that it has. I found that I had a competitive advantage in the sense that I could understand from a theoretical point of view how the mind works and how to trigger one of those emotions and how to get people to engage with you digitally, and that's how I got started in digital.
So obviously the psychology background really helped you get into the heads of what is, I guess. Because there's a lot of people don't understand that digital marketing has a lot to do with not only the creative, mm-hmm. but the actual written word, the copy of the actual stuff. So how important is it to actually tie the copy with the creative aspect of it? But then that also changes on platforms. Mm-hmm. So dive into that, because I'm super interested in the psychology behind the advertisements for UTRGV mm-hmm. specifically, because this is a huge college, 29,000 mm-hmm. students. Yeah, you're just telling me off camera. That's a lot of kids coming in. Even while I was walking in, I was lost. And this place is so beautiful. I hadn't walked in here in a long time. And so touch on the psychology of the advertisements.
Well, the thing is, we have different journeys for different students. So we have to do advertising for the traditional student and just come straight out of high school into college, and maybe right after they go directly into their master's program. The psychology of that student is going to be completely different than the student that has been already in the workforce for several years and is maybe stuck professionally, and they want to maybe take advantage. Maybe they want to go to somewhere else. They want to move to Austin. Maybe they want to move to Dallas, Houston. And so each one of those requires a different journey. So our point with digital advertising is to create enough touch points to first build curiosity about, like, should I go back to school? Is this for me? Is this the right opportunity? Is this the right time? So we do a lot of content marketing around those concepts. The consideration stage, yes. And then we move them little by little into the not only the awareness, but also conversion. And we keep track of those conversions. We keep track of whether you sign up for a webinar, whether or not you log into the student portal where you continue your application. And we make sure that we send targeted messages per each step in their journey.
So so this is the important question. How effective is y'all's digital marketing?
Well, last year we were able to grow our accelerated online programs. These are our master's programs that you can finish in 1 year, 1 year or less in some cases. Those are probably the hardest, most competitive programs out there, because all major universities use these programs to build external awareness and grow beyond campus facilities. And so we are competing against big universities, big private universities, Phoenix University, Southern New Hampshire, nonprofit. So we were able to grow by 25% last year, which is unheard of in higher education. And we actually won an award because of that.
Really? Mm-hmm. Wow. That's amazing. So the testament of digital marketing, it really works. And you really know the industry because you teach it to people. Mm-hmm. So touch on that.
Well, I've been teaching continuing education classes in digital marketing and social media for about 6 years. I originally was doing web design as well, but I kind of lay off, and then I let the web team handle web design. But yeah, it's a very rewarding experience.
So the people that you see coming in for these digital marketing courses or social media courses, what type of people are these? Are they business owners? Are they young people that want to get into the workforce?
It greatly varies. I mean, sometimes it's people that are straight out of college and they just want to gain additional knowledge, awareness, skills. Because honestly, here in the university, we don't really go into very deep, and not even in the bachelor's of marketing. They don't really go very deep into digital. So they may be students that want to develop more experience in digital advertising, but we also have a lot of business owners. We also have a lot of solopreneurs, and they want to get started. They want to handle everything in-house. Teachers as well. The teachers love to teach their kids all kinds of different skill sets. And right now, an idea is having these enrichment programs. A lot of teachers want to teach their kids multiple areas and have a diversity of topics to talk about. And
when you talk about enrichment, like what does that entail?
So I don't remember the specific name of the specific job post that an idea has, but it's like enrichment specialist or something like that. So it's basically people helping kids that are maybe in the last year of high school, to help them kind of understand the world and then get a clearer path towards a career. And so these kind of teachers like to try a bunch of things so that they can go back to the classroom and teach their kids.
Do you find that obviously different teachers, obviously everybody brings their own thing to certain digital marketing aspects of it, right? Especially for like a teacher. Mm-hmm. Do you find that the people that are really passionate about certain things tend to push the students in a direction in the digital world versus more of the traditional world? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, whenever people are very passionate about a particular topic, you can tell when the person that is teaching you is really excited about the topic. You can straight up tell, and that energy is contagious.
Right. So. No, I completely agree. Mm-hmm. The digital world, there's so many aspects of it. There's Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat. What do you feel is the best place to go after your audience?
It depends. It greatly depends. We actually just finished a major survey to our students, and we were asking specifically what platforms do you use most often. And so to almost everybody's surprise, the number one social platform that our students use multiple times a day is YouTube. Okay. YouTube, more than 5 times a day, people are logging into YouTube. 75% of our students, and again, it's a big student population, so 75% of them are logging into YouTube multiple times a day. After that, we have Instagram. After that is Snapchat, Facebook. They're kind of there. And so it greatly depends on the kind of messages that you're trying to send, and the kind of offer that you have. So for example, right now, we have a master's in business analytics. And so for this particular master's that we just started, and we wanted to advertise to big regions, Houston, Dallas, all that. But we wanted to advertise people specifically listening to certain podcasts. So through Spotify, we created a digital ad, and we got a decent return on investment for that ad.
So those Spotify ads, they're obviously targeted to that specific demographic, right? So what does that language sound like going after the people on Spotify versus YouTube?
Well, remember, this is business analytics. So in this particular case, we were talking about the benefit that you can bring to your organization, to your company, to kind of get them in their mind. Your company can probably pay for this. A lot of companies have professional development budgets, and so we kind of wanted to introduce the idea of like, hey, talk to your boss. And so the language was directed towards that.
Interesting, because I found a lot of entrepreneurs that I follow, like Gary Vaynerchuk, he was talking about pushing out ads to the employees. Mm-hmm. That way they can kind of get the boss to jump on board, because usually it's the boss that's an older gentleman or a woman, and they're not familiar with how social media works. So I guess going that route is just another touch point. And touch points are super important. I developed this podcast because I eventually want to sell it. So having a podcast that's already out on iTunes, out on Spotify, it builds the branding. The branding works. I even took out radio ads because I know that certain demographic that I want to go after is listening to KTEX radio, right? And they figured out, KTEX figured out, or actually iHeartRadio figured out when small business owners are listening to the radio. And apparently it's on Sunday night at 7 and 11, and then on Tuesdays at 7 and 11, which is interesting. Like, they figured it out, and they segmented their audiences to be able to push out that message. So I find it super fascinating with the amount of data and analytics that are out there. Is you can really pinpoint these targeted audiences and go after them in great detail.
Oh yes, for sure. Actually, most of our ads, we find that they're the most effective around for master's programs. They're the most effective around 1 to 3 a.m.
Interesting.
So I guess people that are reconsidering their career options, they're trying to...
They're lying in bed thinking about, what am I doing?
What am I doing? Yes, maybe after a hard day of work, or maybe after a long day with the kids, maybe you want to move up and you want to find an alternative to the career path that you currently have. A master's programs can definitely give you that competitive edge. And so we find that people in around that time, they're the most receptive to these kind of messages.
That's interesting. The amount of data and analytics that you can use to make your marketing better, that kind of stuff has never existed before. And it's at disposal to everybody. It's not only to the university, but it's to a digital marketer like myself. And if you learn it, you can really do some damage, or I guess the good damage, right? What digital marketing is for. What do you feel? So one of the things, I have a lawyer client, right? And I've been seeing a ton of different lawyers starting to advertise billboard wars. There's billboard wars with lawyers. There's now there's Facebook wars and Instagram wars. How do you feel about people that are spending the money that don't really have a strategy behind it?
The amazing thing about digital is if you do it right, it can be extremely cheap. It can be the most affordable way to have conversions. If you're doing it right, digital can be very, very affordable. If you do it wrong, it can be extremely expensive. Probably is the most expensive media if you do it wrong. A TV ad, for example, which is normally fairly expensive, for example, here in the Rio Grande Valley, about $25,000 for several days on runtime for TV. You spend it, but if you don't find a return on investment, you just wasted that money. With digital, it's very similar. If you don't know how to target the right people, if you're talking to just the general audience, if you don't know how to track conversions, if you don't know how to keep track of your return on investment, you probably can waste a huge amount of money on digital. So that's why it's really important to find people that really know what they're doing. Otherwise, you're going to be wasting a lot of money.
So talk about the techniques, because, for example, the Facebook pixel, stuff like that, retargeting on Google. Talk about that specifically, because I think what a lot of people that I run into, I always find myself educating them, because that's what I think the differentiator between a business person that wants a long-term success versus somebody that's just trying to get the sale right then and there. I think the educational and informational type of part, it needs to be in there, because then people start understanding, and those business people that are making the decisions will tell their friends that are other business owners, and then it just spreads. Because I feel like the Valley is really behind on a lot of things, and we get to take advantage of that by bringing it into the market and showing people. But I think that you're in a very good position because you have the name behind you, UTRGV. It's very prestigious. So you being able to talk about those things and make it just general knowledge, I think helps out a lot of business owners like accept social media. So touch on like the retargeting, the pixels, and stuff that you've seen that's coming.
Right. So we actually, as a university, we have a dedicated Facebook VIP rep. So these are reps. I mean, if you're being contacted by a Facebook rep, is normally one of those external third-party agencies that work with Facebook to an extent. We actually have a Facebook employee talking to us and optimizing, suggesting ideas and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that they mentioned is the behavioral targeting. They're getting every day. They're getting better and better and better. So the thing that I like to say to people is, if you want to see how targeted advertising works, just turn on your phone, open up Facebook and start scrolling through your feed and mention the word divorce attorney. Just mention it several times casually, and you're just gonna start seeing a lot of divorce attorneys coming into your feed, because Facebook is picking up several signals. One of them is your microphone, and is using all of that data to kind of build an online persona and behavioral targeting of you. So for example, if I'm only looking for people that are ready to sign up for a divorce attorney, then they're ready to consult. I can literally go to Facebook and through the right demographics, the right segmentation, target people that are only at that level of the funnel. Maybe I want them to start for general awareness. Maybe I want to do a targeted ad to a general population, but maybe somebody here that is already talking about, oh, I'm looking for a divorce attorney. Maybe they are more ready to jump and convert and fill out the form, request that information. And so you can actually target that. You can target across the funnel.
That's interesting. So a lot of people talk about privacy, and the world we live in, there's no privacy.
Yes, yeah. In today's digital economy, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard because if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. Right. And so social media leverages that. Social media, Google, digital advertising leverages in that fact.
So Google, YouTube, obviously they're owned by the same company. Do you run a lot of YouTube ads?
We do, yeah.
And what does those look like?
It depends. Sometimes it's only for retargeting for people that have already engaged in other platforms.
So actually talk about that, because different content on different platforms. So this is one of the things that with like South Texas Comic-Con, we have different creative for different platforms, right? And then there are touch points that retarget a different thing. So touch on that, about the different creative aspects that go into different platforms. Mm-hmm.
So for Facebook, you're scrolling through your news feed and you're probably not stopping by and looking at every single ad. So on Facebook, it has to be something extremely catchy. It has to be something that conveys a quick message and triggers your curiosity right away, because you're scrolling. Our Facebook rep actually was telling us that on average, people scroll the height of the Statue of Liberty once a day.
Wow.
And so that we found out fascinating. So people are just scrolling.
There's probably some people that have more.
There's probably somebody, yeah, I'm sure. But they're going really fast, either it's Facebook or Instagram. They're just going really, really fast. So you need to capture the attention right away. It sparks curiosity, kind of build that overall awareness. Facebook may not be necessarily the platform where they're going to convert. Maybe they convert through reading an article on the New York Times and they clicked on one of the ads that shows up in that article. Maybe it's a Google display ad, or maybe it's one of the Facebook Audience Network ads. So it has to change. Your strategy has to change depending on the level of the funnel that the person is at. And also needs to change depending on the platform, because, for example, Instagram story ads are very effective, but if you talk to people, many people say like, oh no, they're highly ineffective. Well, the reason why they're ineffective is because you're leaving the default option set on. And so it's not optimizing for the Facebook story ad. And so for Facebook story, there needs to be a specific format. It needs to be 1080 times 1920, and it needs to be less than 13 seconds long. And like there's specific things that need to go into the creative aspect. And each platform is completely unique. Each platform is different. In YouTube, we use a longer video strategy, because on YouTube, if you're seeing one of our YouTube apps, for example, most likely you have already visited the page, you have already requested more information, so you're ready to digest more information, maybe at 1 a.m., 2 a.m. Mm-hmm. Then you have some free time and you're just browsing YouTube casually. Maybe that's the time where you're gonna select oh yeah, let me keep watching, and you watch the entire 3-minute video that explains about the details about the program.
Right. How have you seen? Do you all, I'm assuming you all use Instagram TV.
Instagram TV? No, I wish we don't find our audience reacting to IGTV as well as we expected.
And obviously, you use the data and analytics to figure that out, right?
Right. I mean, I have a team, but our resources are fairly limited. So if I don't see the data behind it, I choose not to venture into that.
So as far as when you say you see the data, what is it that you say, yes, this is working and I'll go forward with more of it, or you just clip it, that's it?
So for example, for IGTV, it was overall views. We were not getting views regardless of the efforts. We have a mentality of let's test it, let's try it, and let's see what kind of data we can gather from it. And if we see potential, we go ahead and keep trying. With IGTV, we were not getting the views, and I mean, we were spending a lot of time creating dedicated segments, and we were not getting the views, and so we're not.
That's interesting because everybody tells you. Well, certain people will tell you that are go to Instagram TV, go to Instagram, but that's not the only place where the advertisements live. A lot of people, I feel like they don't have a big enough budget to be able to have all those touch points. For example, for like a UTRGV, right? So, what would you say to a regular business owner that's well off, he's doing really good, they're making a lot of money, they want to venture into certain platforms? Which platforms would you suggest, or is it based off of the people that are coming in?
It depends. Here in the Rio Grande Valley, for sure, Facebook. Facebook it can yield some of the best return on investment because a lot of people here in the valley are on Facebook. But if you're planning to do a Facebook targeted strategy, make sure you include English and Spanish ads because sometimes we forget and we have a huge population that speaks Spanish. And so if we're not including that in their language, we're missing out. And so like a lot of people in the Sharyland area, and they have their Facebook profiles by default. Maybe they speak English, but they have it by default set in Spanish. And so if you don't target them in their own language, you're missing out on a huge potential. But Facebook for sure, because it's the least expensive for the return that you get.
Awesome. I was going to ask you, so you all do a lot of video production, I'm guessing. Talk about the commercials, that TV commercials that you're talking about, $25,000 for a TV commercial that'll air, a week? Maybe? Maybe. Versus what's going on now, because I found that production costs have dramatically lowered, right? And the price of video production and content, stuff like that, it's just drastically gone down where you can create more creative, different. Let me give you an example. I work with an aesthetics doctor, and we created a video. We went out to the Plaza Mall and asked people what they thought about cellulite, right? Some of them were in English, some of them were in Spanish. So I got one full video, English and Spanish. I took out obviously the video that was in Spanish, and in the English, I made 3 different videos out of it. So now they're all going targeted to different people. Talk about the difference between where production costs were back then, or even now, versus this new digital production area that a lot of people, if they're smart enough, that can create a ton of content and make it at a fraction of the cost.
Back several years ago, our only channel for video was TV. And so it needed to have an extremely high production cost. It needed to be absolutely perfect, and you only had one chance to get it right because it was going to be extremely expensive, and you only had 20, 30 seconds to convey your message. Now with digital advertising, first of all, the number one platform where people are going to be seeing that commercial is your cell phone. So you don't need to optimize for 4K for a video that is going to be displayed on your Facebook newsfeed. You need to optimize for the newsfeed, and so the colors need to be vibrant. The contrast needs to be high enough so that it captures your attention. For TV, you tend to have more opaque colors in comparison to digital, because on TV you're restricted by other sets of standards. But when it comes to digital, you can test also multiple things. So maybe you have 3 different versions of the same video where the beginning portion is different, but the rest is the same. And you can test it out and see which one is the one that performs best. On TV, you only had one commercial and that's it. With digital, you can see, okay, more people watch this video, so let me put this one and maybe put all my efforts into this video.
Does it have to be high quality? Obviously, not 4K, 1080, right? But can you use your phone camera and still have a very effective return on investment?
Yes, and actually, that's something that not a lot of people understand. And the more high production cost than you put behind a video for digital advertising, the more you're sending the signal of I pay a lot of money, so this is gonna cost you a lot. And so a lot of people actually prefer those. Remember this guy? He had I think it was a Corvette, and it was like a library in the back.
Ty Lopez.
Yes, Ty Lopez. I mean, his videos, clearly shot with his cell phone and clearly in selfie mode.
Yeah.
And so they were highly effective because they come across as genuine. They come across as not overly manicured. They come across as natural. And so I think that's one of the most important things that you need to keep in mind. Then sometimes if you try to make it too perfect, you may actually be missing the point.
And I like the fact that social media is social media. It's very social. Mm-hmm. So you can mess up and then keep going, and you can use it as an advertisement, but it makes a real conversation happen. It's very genuine, like you said. Mm-hmm. So what strategy would you give a business owner that wants to push out a strategy, but they don't have a lot of money? Say they don't have a huge budget, right? Say they have $2,000, $3,000, $4,000 that they want to spend on social media, which is quite a bit. You can reach a ton of people. Mm-hmm. And what kind of strategy would you give them?
Well, it depends on what kind of business.
So let's do the auto industry.
Oh, that's...
So, you see yeah. commercials of a car driving up a hill. They're hoping that's gonna.
Right. No. The auto industry. I find that a lot of people in the auto industry, they're obsessed about what used to work in the past, and they're very reluctant to translate that into digital. One of the things that I see them failing at is at content marketing. So you're just showing me like, buy now, we are the cheapest, we are the best quality, and all that. So they're just focusing on that, on the product, and they're focusing only on beauty shots. They're not focusing on how would it make you feel. Maybe the higher end production commercials, maybe they are, but in reality, like at least here locally, most of them are just trying to sell you a car. You need to sell an experience. And so I think that's what they're failing at. Most of them are failing at. They don't have a long-term content strategy. They only have like a one-shot commercial. Then it's going to be the commercial for the month, and that's it. In reality, you need to build that trust with your customers. And so the auto industry, by providing articles, by providing information, tips on how to avoid get tricked by your car's salesperson, like all that, you start building that trust with your audience, and when you build that trust, they're gonna go to you as their source of information, whether it's to buy a car or to find out whether or not the deal that they're getting is a good one or a bad one.
I feel like a lot of people don't want to take the time to build that because it's not going to happen in a month. Mm-hmm. It's not going to happen in 3 months. So you build that with the long-term goal of like educating, informing people. And then over time, you literally become the expert in your field. And then 6 months down the line, 8 months down the line, they might consider, because you're the only one that ever talks about that mm-hmm. stuff. And I've always subscribed to that. That was one of the first things I learned about digital marketing. And that's why I'm very bullish about educating, about telling mm-hmm. people what's out there. But for me, it took about 1.5 years for people to actually start listening to what I was saying. And it helps, obviously, from like these big guys like Gary Vaynerchuk, Ty Lopez, Grant Cardone. Mm-hmm. These people are also touching on this stuff. So it kind of reinforces what I've been talking about for years. But I feel like there's not enough education around anywhere. Like even if you go to California, I was in Vegas a few months ago, and I saw some of the digital marketing up there, and it wasn't very good. So I feel like there's a lot of opportunity for people to get into that industry and really make a good name for themselves if they're creative. I feel like the creative people that know how to sell are going to be the winners in this industry because it's changed so much. Mm-hmm. How do you feel about that?
I fully agree. Yeah.
Awesome. Touch more on that, because I really want to drill this into people, because I feel like I've been following you for years, and I feel like you're one of the people that I admire in the industry, because you're very knowledgeable. You go to the conferences, you actually take the time to learn these things, and then you teach it. Mm-hmm. So touch more on that, about the creative aspect being one of the things that is really the differentiator in digital marketing.
The creative aspect. So I think then when you're talking about creative, you need to be focusing on the creative psychology of understanding the customer, understanding their pain points. If you just produce a graphic, if you just produce a video for the sake of production, and it's maybe only glamour shots, maybe it's only like a beautiful video, but it's really not touching on solving those pain points. I think then you have a failing strategy. So I think then the creative process needs to address those things, like talking to you, make sure that I grab your attention, make sure that I get your attention, and explain to you, I understand you, I understand your frustration, I understand where you're coming from, and this is the solution, or you might consider this as a solution. I think then the creative needs to be able to do that, to build that bridge.
It's very hard to find creative people too.
It is, yes.
It's very hard. I want to talk about Cambridge Analytica. So a few years ago, when Facebook's algorithms changed and everything, they lowered the business reach for people. A lot of people still don't understand it, like why that really happened. Are you familiar with the Cambridge? So touch on that, because I always tell people about why, if I just go in there and they want Facebook management, it's just pictures and videos. I can do that stuff all day long, mm-hmm. but without the advertising, it doesn't really get out to anybody. Mm-hmm. They don't really understand what really happened with Cambridge Analytica. Mm-hmm. So if you can touch on that.
Well, I don't think Cambridge Analytica played too much. I mean, there is the world before, after, the digital world before and after Cambridge Analytica for a lot of things, especially.
Well, they were the ones that got on the pedestal of.
They were the ones that screwed us over, because originally Facebook allowed their API to have more access to data. Now, if I want to pull multiple reports once a day, I need to segment those reports and only pull them once a day, because Facebook restricts how much data you can access. And also restricts how much data you can import and talk back with the servers on Facebook. And so Cambridge Analytica really made digital advertising significantly more expensive, because a lot of resources are going into trying to protect customer data. Facebook also cut out a lot of third parties like Nielsen, and there is this Pearson X, like the Axiom. They cut a lot of third parties integration and help lower the cost of digital advertising. So Cambridge Analytica exploded the cost. Facebook, the reason why Facebook reach for pages is going down, it's more related to their bottom line. At the end of the day, Facebook is a publicly traded company. They are accountable to their shareholders, and they need to make money. And the only way that they make money is by selling ads. And so that's their business model. And so if a lot of businesses are getting good results organically, they're kind of losing. Facebook is kind of losing on that. So that's why they significantly reduce the reach, because at the end of the day, they want you to pay to play on the platform. No,
and I think that's where it needs to be now, because it's getting harder to grow organically, right? And a lot of people obviously have a good organic growth, especially like on YouTube, right? On Facebook is a little bit harder. Because they do limit that stuff. But I find that it's very fascinating that all this stuff is going on and there's not really people that know about it. Like it's very, when we're in the industry, we get articles, we see the stuff like LinkedIn and stuff like that. Do you all use LinkedIn? Mm-hmm. So touch on that, because I think that's a golden nugget that nobody's really using too much, but it's from the professional standpoint, it's powerful.
Yep.
So touch on that.
Actually, LinkedIn is my favorite social platform. I don't log into Facebook every day. I log into Facebook at least I don't log into Facebook. I log into LinkedIn at least once a day. So as I was mentioning, LinkedIn is my favorite social platform. I log into LinkedIn almost every day, mainly to digest content, maybe to consume content. I am connected to a lot of people in my industry through LinkedIn. And so it's I will not send a friend request, for example, to the mayor of Austin, but I have him as a LinkedIn contact on my LinkedIn, and so we were talking the other day. We were messaging some issues that they had at the city, and I was just asking for my professional opinion. I get my professional opinion, and that helps you build that connection with other industry professionals.
I feel like when I started on LinkedIn and I started sharing more content about digital marketing, I started getting spammed a lot. Do you get spammed on Messenger?
I get a lot of I do get a lot of spam. Yeah, unfortunately,
it's pretty annoying, but I love the platform because it's very professional. It's very professional centric, right?
Yeah.
Versus Facebook, Instagram, stuff like that. But I think LinkedIn is a very good tool to use.
And actually, I was talking to a LinkedIn rep the other day, and he was mentioning, I was like, oh yeah, that's true. He was mentioning LinkedIn is the only major social media platform that has not been involved in any of these scandals. So you were talking about Cambridge Analytica, and they was like, yeah, that is true. I mean, that's the only one. And when it comes to all of these problems with hazing, harassment, hate speech, and all that, LinkedIn has been protected out of that because people go to LinkedIn with a work mentality. They don't go to LinkedIn with like, oh, I'm just gonna bend and bash and destroy this thing. They go to LinkedIn with like, I'm a professional and I'm required to behave professionally. So.
Right. Yeah, it kind of trains you to use that platform that way. Mm-hmm. So I want to talk about motivation. Obviously, you're always around a bunch of younger students, millennials. Mm-hmm. What mind frame have you seen come from the millennial aspect? Because I hired 2 millennials. One of them was super lazy, but the other one was super driven, and I feel like it's like that. Yeah. Like it's either or. There's nothing in between. Yeah. So touch on that.
Well, I am a millennial myself, but I think that the most interesting one is Gen Z. the ones that are right now at college and that they're right now currently pursuing their studies. They're anywhere from 15 years old to 23. So Gen Z it's really the generation that is going to revolutionize and transform a lot of these old mentalities. Gen Z is the generation that has the mentality of experiential. Everything needs to be a good experience. And so if I'm not having a fun time, if I'm not enjoying myself, there is a problem with the system that is not allowing me to enjoy myself in a particular setting. So that's going to be a challenge for businesses. That's going to be a challenge. It is already a challenge for the university. And when it comes to millennials, yes, I mean, you need to understand that one of the most significant events that shaped the mindset of millennials was the economic recession. And so they saw the traditional aspects of work, the traditional aspects of like being loyal to a company. They saw the traditional mindset of I need to have a house, I need to have kids. They saw that, and they saw how fake it was in many cases, how easy it can be taken off. Like maybe they saw their parents 100% invested in their employers, in their companies, and then they were laid off. And so they saw that from a company side of view, there is no employee loyalty. There is no loyalty towards the employees. Like as soon as times gets rough, they are let go. And so they grew up, this generation as a whole grew up seeing a lot of that. And so they saw the debt crisis, they saw the credit crisis, and that has significantly shaped their field of view around what they do. And so yes, it's tough to deal with them because they're naturally distrustful of companies, of organizations.
That's weird. Gen Z. So let's touch on that then, because these are the kids, right, that are going to go into the workforce and create jobs or create businesses that the economy will thrive on in the future. Do you find that they're a little bit more reserved, or like you said, they're more experiential, right? Mm-hmm. So that means they're probably going to be jumping around from business to business to company. Where do you see that stopping, or like do they just figure it out when they get old enough? I guess there's not enough data on it, like to be able to see that far into the future, because right now we got a lot of older business owners, right? Mm-hmm. And then now the millennials are starting to come up that are becoming business owners, but they see the younger demographic, Gen Z, flaky a little bit. So how do you feel that's going to pan out?
I honestly don't know, and that will be very interesting to see how that clash of Gen X and Gen Z is gonna be, because it's a completely different mindset. Like for example, we hire a lot of student workers, a lot of Gen Zs, and in the interview processes, I know that one of the number one things that comes out is if I'm not enjoying myself, if I'm not having a good time, I'm not gonna continue in this position. That's a mentality that is very ingrained in this generation. Like the experience needs to be a great one for me to be here. And so if I had a bad day at work, if I had, maybe it's a sign of something bigger. So they're more alert to those kind of signals, where past generations, maybe you have a crappy day, maybe you have a crappy week, maybe you have a crappy year at your work, but you stick to it and you just continue going to work. For this generation, the meaning of work is more important. They need to find that work is bringing satisfaction to their life. And if they can find that, they become Instagram influencers and they travel the world. So the traditional mindset of like, oh no, you need to work for a big employee, have a 401k, save for retirement, buy a house. Gen Z doesn't really care about that. They care more about living in the moment. They care more about living the experience. One of the behavior patterns that is the most common one is Instagram feed curation. So they care about their aesthetic of their Instagram feed. They deeply care about the things that they're posting on their Instagram, and make sure that they're conveying a cohesive story across the board. And so this gives you the mindset, like for them, documenting the experience sometimes is even more important than the experience itself.
For example, like you're at a concert and you're filming the concert versus actually watching it. Mm-hmm. It's super interesting, because I feel a lot of people fall into that category where they're showing everybody a picture on social media that's not true. Mm-hmm. And I feel like that I feel like eventually it's going to lead to problems mentally, maybe mental health wise. Have you seen anything that way?
Well, I mean, it's fairly common now, common knowledge that the more you use social media, the more depressed you tend to be, especially Facebook for some reason. The more you see other people, the thing is, we need to understand, and that's something that, for example, every time that I talk to other people, I try to make them understand what you're seeing on social media, what you're seeing on the newsfeed of your friends is the absolute best curation of the best micro moments of their life. If you see them at a trip in Europe, maybe you see them eating a fantastic ice cream, maybe you see them, that doesn't mean that their life is 100% like that all of the time. That means that they capture that experience, that moment, and they share it. That's all it means. And so what happens is a lot of people start comparing themselves, like, oh, 95% of my friends have traveled out of the country this year and I haven't. So I feel bad about myself. I feel depressed because I'm falling behind. I'm not living the best life that I possibly can. Neither are they. So people are constantly trying to improve themselves, and people are constantly trying to compare themselves at the same time. And so unfortunately, if you only focus on social media, you don't get to see that real side of life. And that's something that I tend to be very mindful with my own social media. I do take a long time to post, and when I post, it's something that I genuinely want to share, not because I want to brag about a particular topic, but because I find something fascinating that I think that my friends and my mom, who follows me on social media, needs to know about.
It's just, I feel like mental health now is it's trending to talk about it. And the other day I was asking one of my guests about suicide. So suicide currently took over car deaths. Mm-hmm. So statistically, there's more people that have suicides now than car deaths, which is I don't really even want to talk about those things, because I feel like it could influence somebody to trend suicide. It's very hard for people like me that we're on platforms to navigate the right way of speaking about things. But I feel like it has to be out there for awareness. So what do you feel about that? Like walking the fine lines of being politically correct versus just throwing everything out there and seeing what happens.
It depends on what you're trying to do. It's particular with the topic of suicide. One of the great things about social media, yes, it's an evil on one side, but on the other side, it also brings the antidote to the venom. So there's a lot of communities that are support communities for people that have suicide ideation. There is a lot of resources available online, and so if you're thinking about committing suicide, if you're depressed, if you're feeling down constantly, there's communities that can help you and can guide you through the entire process. And maybe seeing that other people have gone through the process, and maybe seeing that other people have survived, and seeing that other people have thrived, even regardless of this might be a biological component to your suicide ideation. Seeing that other people have gone through it and you're not alone, it's a very rewarding experience, and it helps you understand and there is other people, and there is a light at the end of the tunnel. When it comes to the negative side, of course, if you focus on social media and you only go there as your only source of human connection, yes, it significantly increases the risk of suicide, because the human connection that you get from social media is not the same as talking to a friend at a cafe. Is not the same as establishing a deep interpersonal connection with somebody. And so social media is a complement, not a substitution for human interaction.
Do you feel like that our millennial generation is obviously more inclined to have those deep conversations versus the Gen Z?
I am afraid, and Gen Z they literally grew up with an iPhone in their hand. Mm-hmm. Many of them grew up with an iPhone in their hand. And so I think that millennials have a significant advantage because we live in a world that didn't have the technology that we had today. When I was 13, I didn't have a cell phone. But nowadays, it's rare to see a 13-year-old without a smartphone. Not a cell phone, not a cell phone to make calls, but a smartphone to connect and share and to basically access the world's knowledge base. And so I think that millennials had it significantly easier because we experienced what is life before technology. And so Gen Z, I think that the fact that they are so ingrained with the digital technology could end up being a handicap, because it's harder to make that human connection if you're only glued to your phone.
Interesting. Do you see a lot of students here just glued to their phone while they're walking?
Of course, all the time.
Everywhere. Everywhere. Mm-hmm. Artificial intelligence. Mm-hmm. Talk about that. Do you have stuff here at the university that you're implementing artificial intelligence? So
we're trying to create a smart bot that can help you answer. We have a bunch of we have a live chat bot. No, a live chat is an actual feature on certain pages. Then we've been collecting information about the kind of questions that people are asking, and so we are trying to build a smart bot and can help you navigate through your college experience, because it's fairly complicated. I mean, there is a bunch of classes that you need to register. There's a bunch of departments. There is a bunch of things that you need to do before graduating, for example. Then maybe a bot could help you make sure that you're on the right track.
On the right track. Do you feel like that type of bots is gonna bite you all in the butt? I'm trying to stay away from explicitness here, so we won't get it explicit. But do you feel like that's gonna take away jobs from people at the university?
That's gonna free people, because right now a lot of those answers are very repetitive. People are asking about the same kind of things, and so I don't think that it's gonna take away jobs. I think that it's only gonna allow us to specialize in other areas that require more human interactions. The perfect example that I like to give is look at the ATM tellers. And now when you go to a bank, you're rarely going to see people behind the counters. Most of the time, for example, Chase, they are the ATMs, the automated teller machine. And so because most of the interactions that you needed from the bank are very transactional, they do not require that human touch, but they actually, Chase expanded their services for all those other interactions that require more human connections, for example, investment banking or personal wealth management. All those things that require more of a human touch and honestly are more rewarding. Just counting bills is not rewarding as a human experience. that can be done by a machine. And so I think that machines are taking away a lot of those jobs, then eventually is gonna free up enough people to have more human interactions and more human connections. Also, I mean, did the car take away a big horse industry? Yes, they took away a lot of the horse, the manure collection industry that was destroyed because of the car. But the car also opened up a lot of other opportunities.
So what skills do you think that people are going to need within the next 5 to 30 years, where artificial intelligence is gonna reign king?
The safest industries from disruption, the safest industries then are going to be protected from this explosion in automation and in smart machine learning are those that require creativity. Because at least for a while, creativity is one of those things that is really hard to make a robot do. So any creative endeavors, any creative thoughts, especially as it is in the creative aspect of the creative interaction with those technologies, those are the safest industries probably.
Interesting. So I'm gonna go a little philosophical here. What do you think about? Okay, so say we're having this conversation. Artificial intelligence is now here. We're here 50 years later, where artificial intelligence is huge. And do you think that these robots are gonna be wanting us humans around, like if we're kind of a nuisance, like, because obviously when we build something with artificial intelligence, they're already going to be like weeding out what they don't need to make it more effective, make it more efficient. And I feel like us humans, we kind of just ruin everything. Do you feel like we'll ever get to that point where, like, you know what, like Skynet, like they won't need us around anymore?
I seen movies and I seen the conversations about it. I don't think that that's a particular concern that I have, just because I think that it's extremely hard to create a completely sentient autonomous robot. It's extremely hard to build those self-assumptions. I mean, at the end of the day, coding is basically a set of rules, if-then statements. And so to code sentience to the point of, I'm going to get rid of humans, I think that is a barrier that I don't think that we're going to cross. I think that that's too far-fetched, and what we're experiencing right now is the normal paranoia of new technologies. But I don't think that they would come to that extent.
So what do you feel about, obviously, the expansion of technology? Because, I mean, just a few hundred years ago, we didn't have much, but then an explosion of technology just it came. Like, now we have so much data. I believe I read the other day that data is the #1 resource over oil now. So where do you see, like, these big companies like Facebook, Instagram, Google, where do you see these guys taking this type of information and using it in the world that we're going to be living in?
I think they already do. They already do, to personalize your life experience. I definitely think that at the end, they're going to end up merging somehow, and it's going to be a cohesive experience. Like, your cell phone is going to be a Facebook-owned cell phone, then it's going to be provided for free. But the trade back is they get all access to your information, your Fitbit, your heart rate. And so, for example, if they see that you constantly have a high blood pressure, they may suggest, like, hey, you may want to talk to your doctor, connect to your doctor right now. Talk to you. If they see, for example, an abnormal heart pattern, maybe your phone could alert you, like, hey, here is a doctor for you to talk right now. And if you're feeling depressed, they will, a pop-up window will open in one of your devices and say, like, do you want to talk to a counselor right now? I think that technology is going to become more integrated with our everyday life.
What do you think about Elon Musk?
I mean, I love him.
What do you think he's going to bring to the table? Because obviously there's Tesla, which I love. I love Elon Musk. I feel he's one of the great innovators of our time. Going to Mars, do you think we will become an interplanetary species in our lifetime?
I think the possibility is there. And one of the coolest things is we actually have a launching pad in Brownsville, and we have a program with SpaceX. So
really,
it's a partnership, and so literally SpaceX is right in front of our building, Stargate. Our students. We're going to have a very unique opportunity to interact with those kind of technologies. So it's very exciting from a university point of view.
That's awesome.
And we have that here in the Valley. We have the launching pad here in the Valley. So that's amazing.
Would you be one of those people that would go to Mars?
I'll probably be too old by then. I mean, sure.
yeah. So what do you feel like it's going to look like? What it's going to be like? Because obviously the people that pioneer these things that go to, like, obviously another planets, it's going to be harsh conditions, right? Mm-hmm. So what do you feel like, just out of curiosity for me, what do you feel like when you get there? What it's going to look like? What it's going to be like?
I mean, the only thing that I have as a point of reference is movies, and so probably something like Interstellar, maybe like a dedicated station where they grow their own food and recycle their water and all that.
Interesting. So I want you to touch on the ethics of digital marketing. Mm-hmm. Obviously, there's a lot of policies that Facebook has, that Google has, that you have to follow policy. Touch on that stuff, because I feel like a lot of people are just pushing out a ton of stuff and it doesn't follow policy, but it still goes through the loops. It still gets out there. Mm-hmm. I feel like the negative aspect of Facebook, the policy type of thing, it lowers your reach, it lowers your stuff like that, right? Mm-hmm. So touch on that. I know we're jumping back and forth, but I kind of want these, as things are popping into my head, they're kind of going out. So touch on the negative aspects of how your page ranking works or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So one of the biggest things, and actually in one of my classes I was talking about this, how especially Facebook then hasn't introduced a diversity algorithm, and I'll touch on that in a second. For example, Facebook, it's actually creating a lot of isolation of ideas, a lot of information bubbles. By Facebook only promoting content to your newsfeed, then they know that you're gonna like and you're gonna engage and you're gonna prefer. By Facebook constantly doing that, they're feeding you information that you already know and you're just gonna blindly agree upon. Other channels, for example, YouTube, have introduced a diversity component to their algorithm where, yes, they're gonna show out of 10 articles, 10 videos, 8 are gonna be things that you like, but 2 are gonna be opposite point of views that you normally don't have. But they're not gonna be like crazy point of views. Right. They're gonna be point of views that are within a latitude of acceptance of your past ideas. So it's like if you are extremely conservative, for example, they're gonna introduce 1 or 2 videos that talk about the conservative case for a liberal policy on a particular topic. And so they start introducing a diversity of ideas, which I think is fantastic from YouTube to do. On Facebook, they haven't done that, and so it becomes an echo chamber, and it becomes you only hear what you want to hear, and you tend to think that everybody thinks the way you do just because all of your friends think the way you do, but in reality, it's because social media has created kind of like a bubble around you.
Do you feel like that's the reason why there's like these fascist type of groups that are out there, like they're
extreme polarization? Yes, that's been a huge factor. Yeah.
It's very scary, the world we live in, because a lot of people are getting their information off social media
primarily, and
it's not true. Like some of it's fake news. Mm-hmm. It still goes through the channels that it's misinformation. Mm-hmm. How do you feel like for the university, how do you combat that type of stuff? Mm-hmm. Is it through education, information?
Education, I mean, that's our number one goal, to provide that quality education in all aspects to help people become the better version of themselves every day. That's what we do as an institution. When it comes to the information that people consume, one of the interesting things is the older generations are the ones that are having the hardest time when it comes to understanding that not all the content that they see on social media is valid, is true. The thing is, prior generations, they grew up in the era of TV, and so the TV was this only source of information. And even there was this brand called As Seen on TV. Whenever you saw this stamp on a product, it meant that it was valuable enough to be advertise on TV, and so it makes an important thing. And so older generations have this mentality of defaulting to truth. Everything that I'm reading must be by default truth. Gen Z, for example, it's naturally distrustful of whatever information they see because they grew up immunized from this, because they grew up in an environment where they got to be exposed to multiple points of view digitally. And so they're naturally distrustful. So I think that as Gen Z starts dominating more the world of social media, that is gonna go down. The natural tendency of just over relying on social media as your only source of information is gonna go down.
Interesting. So we're about to get to the end of the podcast, but I always ask this to all my guests. Your accumulative knowledge, your life experiences, what is the best piece of advice that you can give anybody about anything?
The best piece of advice. Learn to be curious about learning. Learn to inspire yourself to always be learning. That's probably the best piece of advice. That's actually on my hiring philosophies. Like, I only hire people that are passionate about learning. I think that that's, if you think you know it all, if you think that there is nothing else that you can know or learn, it's hard for you to grow and flourish and contribute more to an organization, to an institution, to humanity. And so I love people that are always learning. If you're passionate about learning, you get it, mate.
Awesome. Alex, I appreciate you coming on the podcast. Just let everybody know where they can find you or more information about you if they want to reach out and maybe have a conversation about where digital marketing is going or the philosophies of that.
Yes, of course. Well, I'm on LinkedIn, Alex Garrido. And also I am on Twitter, Mr. Alex Garrido. And those are my primary channels, social channels.
Awesome. Alex, I appreciate you coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Welcome to the Joshua Morales Podcast.